Yeah.
Ron Highland had a 7:30.
They're same one.
Oh my gosh, man,
Wow.
that's crazy.
Well, most of the legislators canceled theirs for this morning. I said,
Good morning and welcome to the May Legislative Coffee here in Ottawa, Franklin County. Thank you all for coming. It's a beautiful May day out there, and there's a lot of stuff going on in town. A fun run, which made it difficult to get here today. A lot of golfers out at the golf course that I saw. Citywide garage sale, all kinds of things going on. So we appreciate you being here and giving us part of your weekend. I'm Tony Brown. I'm an assistant dean at Neosho County Community College, and I'll be the moderator today. And I apologize for the viewers at home who may have expected to see a Saturday morning show of that crazy little monkey named Franklin. You got me instead, so I apologize. But we do have a whole room full of Franklin County residents. We've got our area legislators here and a lot of topics to talk about, so I think that we're going to have a good discussion this morning. I thought what we might do is start off by just allowing each legislator to greet you all and to give their general impression of how the session went, the good things that happened, the bad things that happened, just a brief opening, and then we'll get to some of the issues that they've been wrestling with. So, Senator Tyson, do you want to start us off?
Oh, that'd be great. It's good morning. I'll reiterate, it is a beautiful morning, and it's difficult to be inside on such a gorgeous day, so I appreciate you guys taking the time and coming to listen. This session was, as most, it was a roller coaster. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, wins and losses. I had a couple of, you can consider them wins. We got the bills out of committee. We got them past the Senate. They stalled after that. One of them was very dear to my heart. If you filled out your state income taxes, you can no longer take your losses on your state income taxes for Schedule F, C, and E. And it's a drastic change in policy, and one that I would like to see us change or address in the future. Anyhow, we did get it past the Senate, but we weren't able to get it any further than that. Another bill that I had worked on this session, actually chaired in a subcommittee, was a bill drones. It would have allowed the use of drones, commercial use of drones, but it would have helped protect our privacy. As individuals, we like to know, as Kansans, as U.S. citizens, we have an expectation of privacy, and we'd like to ensure that that continues. The drone bill did get out of committee. It was a good bill. It allowed use unless it was over private property. Then you had to have permission from the property owner to be able to fly over or record. The drone industry is expected to be an $85 billion industry nationwide. I'm very hopeful that Kansas will be a part of that. We're known as the air capital of the world, as my husband so eloquently told me. I'd like to see Kansas be a big part of the drone. We have lost 2 K-State professors and several K-State employees in the drone industry to private companies outside of Kansas. So we need to be aggressive in this industry. I'll let these guys speak real quick, but I would like to take a minute to thank my husband for all the support he gives me. We finished after 2:30 in the morning, or it was about 2 o'clock last night in the morning, and he's always there for me. He was there all week. It was a rough week, and he's here again this morning. So thanks, and thank you guys for all you do too.
Thanks. Representative Jones, would you like to go next?
Sure. I also want to just say thanks for coming today, guys. It's I actually was wondering, because I've seen the announcements in the paper and everything for the garage sale day, and I'm kind of a garage sale guy, so I thought about coming all early this morning, and then we went until 3 o'clock last night or whatever. So, but I'm ready to go after this. That being said, I do want to thank you. For all your support and your calls, especially this last week with all the fun stuff that went on and all your input. this year has been, each year is different, or maybe it isn't, I don't know, but the last 2 years have been real different for me. Did my best, I've said it before, just to, you start moving forward with stuff that you're interested in and really focused on, and you realize that you're only going to get so far with it, so you push it and work on it as much as you can, but you also don't want to waste taxpayer time and dollars, so you get focused on things that you know you can get done. And so I did do that this session, got a couple things through, carried a couple things that actually meant a whole lot to me. One of them was 2463, which basically the easiest way to say it, we call it Steve's Law. Steve was actually a close friend of mine and my office assistant. The previous year brought it to my attention, and it's in Kansas there isn't much of a focus on terrorism and things that happen in that nature just because of our geographic security. We don't really think about it that much, and then we had some stuff happen in Wichita area that really brought it to our attention. And so we passed a bill essentially that would, to make it simple, de-incentivize terrorism. It actually helps people who are hurt by an act of terrorism, weapons of mass destruction, that kind of thing. And it went through. It passed both the House and the Senate. Was signed just the other day by the governor. I actually have a copy that was signed by the governor. And so things like that actually encourage you that things that are important can get passed and get through, and that happened this year. I know that there are some other things that we'll be talking about that weren't so easy to get through, and so anxious for your questions, and just to say hi, since it's been a little bit of time since I've been able to be here, and my wife is about ready to have our 6th child, so at any time. So now that it's over, now that we're not having I thought we were going to have a veto session baby, but I didn't miss any votes, so here we are. So very good.
Well, there's already too much stuff going on this morning, so
Yeah, right?
she cannot go
Not
into
today.
labor. Yeah. Representative Finch, would you like to go ahead and greet the crowd?
I want to thank the Chamber's Legislative Committee for hosting us again and having us here. I told John Cohen that we were going to have to talk scheduling next year, though. As the other representative and senator said, that we got done about 2 in the morning last night, and probably in terms of my general thoughts on the session overall, there was a lot that happened in a much shorter amount of time this year, 78 days versus almost 100 last year. Probably the biggest disappointment for me is in that condensed time frame was process. The way things were done this time was more disappointing in terms of the late hours. We took some votes last night in the wee hours of the morning that really deserved, I think, more scrutiny. And so some of those process things this year, we got a lot of content in Senate bills, and this is not this senator's fault at all. We got a lot of content in Senate bills, and it was a yes or no vote. There was no chance for the House to offer amendments or be equal participants in the process, and that came up on numerous issues throughout this session, and that was disappointing for me as a House member. So I'm anxious to hear what you all think and what you want to know more about, but there are a couple of bright spots I want to mention real quick. The no-call list for mobile phones, I was honored to carry that on behalf of the Attorney General in the House, and that passed. We had a signing on that last week. And then the other one is the association healthcare bill that passed. This allows associations like automobile dealers, bankers, to have their own health insurance pool. It brings down costs for a lot of our small business owners and allows them to get a competitive product in the health insurance market, and is more of a free market Kansas solution to some of the problems we're seeing with the Affordable Care Act at the federal level. And then finally, the juvenile justice reforms that my subcommittee worked on extensively. We got 3 of the 4 passed thanks to some help in the Senate. And that's good progress. It's not quite enough. The minimum age for juvenile prosecutions as adults went from age 10 to age 12. We were trying to get it up to 14. So as compromise occurs and we have to give a little to get a little, we ended up between 10 and 14. We ended up right there in the middle at 12. But we'll also be using screening instruments for juveniles to make sure that we identify substance abuse and mental health issues and try to get them the services they need so that we can catch these problems early instead of having them develop into adult offenders and the costs that come with housing people in prisons. So some good things have happened this session. They get covered up with the headlines about the controversial stuff, but I know that my colleagues up here have worked hard on some good things that they believe in, and I tried to do the same. And I think overall, and you're always free to disagree, but I think you've got three folks here who really tried to put the best interest of the district first and work hard for you. So we're anxious to hear what you have to say this morning.
Thanks, Blaine. Well, I thought what we might do is start this morning by talking about the news. There were some stories that broke this week that were somewhat alarming for many of us, and so I'd like to hear your reactions to them. On Wednesday, the news broke that Kansas revenue for April was significantly below what the estimates were. There were a couple of numbers that were floated out there, $92 million, $93 million. The exact figure turned out to be, I think, $92.8 million. That's a lot of money, no matter whether you round up or round down. And so that was a bit alarming to many Kansans. The governor blamed that, or attributed that, I should say, to changes in federal tax policy, and that it was due to some changes in the way that taxes are collected that were made by the Obama administration. On Thursday, Moody's downgraded the state's bonds. Again, another scary sort of scenario for most Kansans. I'd like to hear just your reaction to both of those news events, because Wednesday and Thursday were kind of tough days for some Kansans in terms of the state's economy. Representative Jones, I think I'm going to let you lead off on this if you'd react.
My reaction is, ouch. I mean, that's what it is. You can't necessarily sugarcoat it. And I'm not an economist or anything like that, so to look at it and give you all the answers on why, I don't necessarily have that. One of the things that I have pushed, and people know, especially on education budget and different committees I'm on, is where I stand when it comes to bonding, and when it comes to going further in debt, when it comes to our rating going from A1 to an A2, on all of that. I didn't vote for any of that kind of thing, that especially in committee. I was kind of the one that kind of they're like, oh, we're going to talk about bonds again, because I always had questions about it. I'm not real keen on that, but the way I understand it, it had to do with capital gains tax or something, the people getting them out early or something like that. And I'm not really sure how that all works. I just know we have to work as a state, and these guys will be able to answer, I'm sure, a lot better when it comes to that. But as a state, we have to look at it all and not just make not just keep moving. Not just keep paying just keep paying and paying and paying and think it's going to all go away. I think it's fundamental, and it comes back to the way we run our own houses, and also how we pass that on to our to the next generation. Because if they're financially, if they understand finances well, and they will lead their own homes and our state in the direction that's going to help us to get out of debt, I think that's the best way to go. So I hope that answers.
Representative Finch, would you like to respond to this?
Very discouraging news, obviously, to find out, 2 weeks before we had the consensus revenue estimating group come out and say we thought revenues would be fairly flat through the year. And we didn't expect any large drops like this. They did, and let's explain what happened. How did we get to the 92 million? What does that have to do with the federal government? Back in 2012, there was some concern that capital gains taxes would be going up the next year. Because of the budget shutdown and the duel between Congress and the president, they ended up coming to an agreement that kept capital gains taxes the same. So there was no tax increase at the federal level. But many investors went ahead and cashed in some gains in 2012 just to go ahead and get them at what they then knew was that rate. Okay, so they knew it was going to be 15%, say, on long-term capital gains in 2012, so they went ahead and cashed in thinking it may go up. What that meant was, in April of 2013, when those people filed their taxes, they paid a lot of taxes. So there was more money coming in April of 2013 than people normally saw. So fast forward a year to April of 2014, and now you don't have the same revenue coming in that you did in 2013 because that was a windfall, right? If you get a Christmas bonus, you can't project that you're going to make the same in January that you made in December. So that's what happened. It's not that there was a tax increase at the federal level. It's not that the state got less money. It's that the state didn't get the windfall it got in 2013. And there were economists who were warning states about the record windfalls of April of 2013 over a year ago. So this was not unanticipated. And in fact, the Consensus Revenue Group that met and issued their forecast 2 weeks ago took into account about $100 million in what they thought would be lower revenues year to year, from April 13 to April 14. They thought it would be down about $100 million. It was actually down over $200 million. And some of that, and so that's why you see the $92 million drop here. So some of that's the record windfall that we just didn't quite forecast for properly. Some of that is the cuts to income taxes in the state of Kansas. So it's a combination of factors. And like most things in economics, and I was a psychology major, I was one of my majors in college, they always said, is it nature or nurture? It's both. Well, in in economics, it's always more than one factor. So it's a combination of factors here as well, and that's what led us to this point. The Moody's downgrade, they gave their reasons for that downgrade. They include the tax cut plan. They include the loss of revenues that has happened and will continue to keep coming in the state because of the cuts to income tax. So that is going to be something we're going to wrestle with, and as you look at the budget, and we'll talk about the budget here in a little bit, there is a lot of reason to think that this is but the canary in the coal mine, and we really need to begin changing some things fiscally at the state level based on the fact that revenues are going to continue to, even if they stay steady, they're going to be down, and they're going to be down significantly enough that we can't sustain the kind of spending that was passed in the budget this year.
Senator Tyson.
Yeah, these two gentlemen addressed the situation eloquently. It is a problem, and you know what was the shocker in the Capitol when we got the news Wednesday was we had been told previously, a week or two before that we were 80-some million up in revenue for the state. So can you imagine 2 weeks later to hear the news that not only are you down zero, you're negative $90-some million. So it was a drastic, it definitely changed the conversation for veto session. And we're well aware of it. They are talking about an interim committee for budgets to address and look at. We do have some duplicate spending. We have some areas that can be cleaned up. You know, I've spoke about that often. And I think that's where we need to address the situation.
Thanks. One of the last things you all do, usually at every session, is pass the state budget, and that's what you were doing yesterday. Many of us in this room were watching that very closely. The budget passed in the Senate by a very close vote, 22 to 18. I don't have the number of when it passed in the House, but it was a close figure, I think.
Got 70.
None of you voted for the state budget. None of you supported it. And so I would be interested in hearing your reflections on that process and why it is that in the end, none of you felt like you could support the state budget that finally came out. Representative Finch, I'm going to let you lead off on this one.
Okay. I have a run. This is the numbers. We call them the runs up there, which is probably not the best term, but this is the numbers. And if you look at these, in fiscal year 2014, which for the state is going to end in summer of this year, we have an ending cash balance of about $602 million, and state spending out of the state general fund was $5.9 billion. And that was down a little bit. Historically, we float right around 6 to 6.1. That was down a little bit. With this budget, next year, fiscal year 2015, which will start this summer, state spending goes up to $6.272 billion. So we are going to spend, in the wake of finding ourselves $92 million down, finding our bond rating degraded, and all the projections point to less revenue, we've tacked into the wind and are going to spend another $275 million. Well, that's going to leave our ending cash balances at about $288 million, which is 4.6%, which is about 3% less than the state statutory reserves. They're supposed to be at 7.5%. I looked at the budget, and there wasn't anything in it, line item by line item, that I said, I just can't live with that. But in the aggregate, in the whole, I said, we simply can't do this. I ran on a platform of being fiscally responsible, and I just don't see how we increase spending by $275 million when all of the indicators are telling us we don't have the revenue to cover that kind of spending. And I don't think it's good policy, and I don't think it's good practice, and I don't think is what's best for the people in this room and the people in this district. So that was the basis of my no vote on it. There were some process issues I had with the budget as well, but those were far outweighed by the fact that I don't think we can call ourselves fiscally conservative and then go in and vote for budgets and spending packages and tax packages that blow holes in our state financial situation. And so these folks probably have some other reasons why they voted the way they did, but that was it for me.
Senator Tyson, we're just going to go down the line on this one. You want to respond?
Thank you. Yes, fiscal responsibility is the main issue with the budget. There are people that did support the budget. I won't second guess their votes. There were some things in it that, the corrections portions. We did increase funding on corrections, which was an oversight from last year, and it needed to be done. But what we have up there, and Representative Finch spoke a little bit to it. At the end of session, what happens is a bill bundling. We'll end up seeing bills that will have, we had one tax bill this year that had 6 bills in it. I'm happy to say that it was not controversial. It passed both chambers with no votes. But still, 6 bills in one package is a lot to digest. And the budget is, we get the budget within 2 days. Sometimes we don't even get that long to look at it and to digest. So we get to look at the numbers very quickly and make a decision as to whether we're an up or down vote. And so I do agree the process needs to be addressed up there, but there was a bill this year that would have required it, that would have only allowed 1 or 2 bills to be put in with into combined. I think all of us up here would support that legislation. I don't want to speak for the other legislators, but we all agree that the bill bundling is what gets us items that aren't so friendly towards our district and possibly others in the state. So,
Representative Jones.
Thank you. I actually agree a lot with what both these guys said, especially with what Blaine said. It's real simple. When you look at it and you can't afford it, you just go, what are we doing? And here's what's really hard is, like, when you go through this, I have stars by stuff I like, and then I have circles around things like, getting rid of a not very good looking car and buying a brand new one full price and stuff. When you don't have the money, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But or 5 or 10 cars or vans, brand spanking new, which you could debate that later. But like things like that affect my district. I have Osawatomie State Hospital, things like that. In Osawatomie, they close in Rainbow. Their money will go down to. So there's good things in there that I really need for my district. And then there's things where it's just like we're walking off a cliff. And at some point you have to say, what's the wise thing to do here? And although there was some stuff that it looked like it was put in there just for me or for my district, it can't overtake the actual fiscal irresponsibility. That's one of the things I ran on too. It's something I really want to get right at the state level. It's something that most of the people who are around me every day know that I'm pretty big on. And so when it came down to it, and I'm looking at the numbers, in the later years, it doesn't add up and we can. what's strange is that you get a little bit late in session, people can convince themselves just to, hey, let's go. Yeah, this is great. Let's jump off the cliff, guys. And people will do it. So, yeah, that's what we tried to hold strong and just say, no, we can't do this, not like this. And it passed, and so we'll have to work on it. So.
I'm going to ask one more question, and I'll come over and get you, okay? All right. That deals with what has happened this week. The other hot issue for many people in this room that occurred this session had to do with education funding, and it's not totally unrelated to what we were just talking about. The funding that was added to education was significant. It's complicated, and so for the average Kansan, it's very difficult for us to understand. The one issue that people did sort of latch onto and do understand better is a change in definition of what it means to be a teacher, and the fact that that change has eliminated teachers' due process rights. And that has a couple teachers in the state of Kansas a little bit concerned. Yeah, so what I've got is that Senator Jones and, or rather, Representative Jones and Senator Tyson, you supported that legislation. Representative Finch, you did not support that legislation. So a lot of people in this room would like to hear your explanation of those votes and what you liked about that legislation, perhaps what you didn't like, why you came down where you did. So Senator Tyson, I'll let you lead off.
Yeah, like I said, the process, it's very difficult to get 100%. So you have to weigh the good and the bad. And there were different portions to this bill. What was interesting on the education bill was they're saying that some of the amendments went on in the middle of the night. Well, that's not quite accurate. It was in the evening in the Senate, not in the middle of the night, but there was a bill that the bill passed then. There was 6 hours of debate on the bill. But the amendment that the tenure amendment went on in the evening. It wasn't, I forget what time it was. But we did have over a 6-hour debate on the Senate floor on it. The original bill that came to the Senate, I was a no vote on it. It did not have, it had a lot of things in it, but it would have hurt the funding for my district. I have 17 school districts in the 12th Senate district, and 4 of those would have been a decrease in funding. So they took it to conference committee. Like I said, there's always good and bad, and you've got to decide what for your district is best. So the bill went to conference committee and then came back to the Senate. And when it did come back to the Senate, it had increased funding for all of my school districts except for one. I called that superintendent and had a good discussion with him. He said, we get over $300,000 tax break for our community with this bill. He said, of course I support it. If it helps my community, it helps my school. I called several teachers that I know, family members, friends, discussed with them portions of the bill, tenure, other items. They were fine with it. So I know not everybody's going to agree with it 100%. You did not lose due process. There is still due process. If your civil rights have been challenged, you have due process. The other item is what this did remove was tenure at the state level. It did not remove the ability for the local school districts to negotiate tenure. I do know that Derby School District is one of them that already has tenure in their contract. And I'm sure there might be other school districts in the state. So again, it wasn't a black or a white vote. There was a lot in it. The increased funding, what happened in also another portion of the bill was, it was interesting because there is a section that allows, it increased the LOB from 31, the maximum, to 33. And if you were a school district that was already capped out at 31 LOB, you automatically went to 33%. So that means an automatic property tax increase for those school districts. Well, it was Johnson County that was pushing for that legislation to increase the LOB. So none of the school districts in the 12th district are capped at 31, so none of them are an automatic increase. All of the school districts in the 12 districts, it goes to a vote of the people. The voters decide whether they want to send the money to the school district or they want it to go for property tax relief. And the schools can put that, if they don't have that vote, it automatically goes for property tax relief. So that's the bill in a nutshell. I mean, there's more to it, there's more complicated items in it, but I think the tenure is the main thing that we've heard from teachers. The property tax relief is the main thing we've heard from of other individuals.
Representative Jones, you also supported this legislation. You want to talk
Sure.
about it?
Thank you. Yeah. It seems so long ago, honestly. It's so strange how it seems like so much time has passed. But yeah, with the education funding, it was one of those things where with the decision that came down, the court decision that came down, the precedents before that, the idea that we had to give a certain amount of money or how you make it right for the equity or equalization and all of that stuff. Equalization basically it has to do with the court decision and how we make right at a state level. So the idea was to give a certain amount of money to make it right, and I guess 129 million, give or take, makes it right. And so there's people at the Capitol that don't want to give anything. Then or I should say representatives. There's representatives that don't want to give anything. There's representatives that just want to take away tenure, want to get money for private schools, want to do, it's like policy changing and stuff. And then there's people who are a little bit in between. And the idea is to get money to actually do what's right. So you're before the courts, before what's just. Then also to get something that we can actually pass through, and that's where it gets kind of difficult. And in this case, we weren't going to get. I think the first time we passed something that had just money. Wasn't going to pass through the Senate. The Senate did a lot of stuff that was mainly policy, and so when they came together in conference, and this, Blaine could tell you, is one of those things when it's just in a conference and we're all kind of on the outskirts, it makes it difficult, part of the process. But it has policy and it has money, and then you have to decide, is this something that I can stomach? Now, I do sit on a school board. I'm on USD 289. And I've been on negotiations, and so I have some insight with that. My whole school board, they were all emailing me and texting me and everything when it came to this whole thing, and they were doing it long before the longevity even came up, or the tenure portion of it even came up. We were talking about it, and so in our situation where I'm at in my schools and everything. Also, my brother, being a school teacher and many school teachers that I know and friends, the longevity portion of it, even it's already coming up in negotiations this year to deal with that at the local level. So I don't know that I don't believe that the longevity portion, if it's something that is really important to a local level, I think it'll be something that'll get back into at a local level. At the state level, the longevity portion, that's what you have to give to get the money. One of the questions and that's what makes it dangerous up there too, because whether it's 2 in the morning or not, both sides were tired. There was teachers there until 2 in the morning. There's even later than that, and the questions asked, do you want money or do you want your tenure? And I was standing there. I didn't ask the question, and somebody said, we want our tenure. And I was just like, okay. So is this about our students, or is it the question? That's the thing. Whether people are tired or what, that's it, the questions and the answers and all that get real difficult. And so we all would agree that we want to get the money to our kids. We want our kids to grow. We want our kids to have a good education, and that's where we want to get it. And in this case, I really felt like that was the way to go. So.
Representative Finch, you are the outlier among this trio of legislators. You did not vote for this legislation. Explain your vote.
Well, I did vote for an education plan, and that was the one on Friday of that week, and that was the one that passed the House with 91 votes, had a large majority in the House coming out. It had some policy pieces in it. It was not just a blank check. Talked about innovative school districts. We talked about alternative teacher certification. We talked about the study commission to review efficiencies in education and find ways to have cost savings and realize gains in terms of the product that we produce. And I was involved in negotiations with the Speaker and with the Governor on that bill and trying to get reasonable policy pieces in it so that we felt like we were going to be improving accountability for the dollars that we spend and get some good result. And I think the majority of the House felt that way too, by a pretty wide margin. That bill went into conference. There were members of the Senate that wanted some policy pieces, as has already been said. My no vote was predicated on the fact that the bill we sent over got more expensive. We actually ended up spending more money because of the corporate tax credit that was added to the bill, about $10 million. The property tax credit was taken out, but it would have been another $16 million. That's why I voted no the second time, and then we still had the corporate tax credit in there. We also had policy changes that came about without, and this is what I talked about earlier, the House had no opportunity to vet or amend the provisions on policy that the Senate had added because it came out of a conference committee. I cannot abide being a junior partner in the legislative process. You guys didn't send me there to just say, well, okay, you guys got a full hearing in the Senate and I'm just supposed to be an up or down. No. If that's the option I'm going to get, I'm going to say no. And a policy change like due process is big. It is one that deserves a full airing and a full vetting of all of the issues and all of the interest at the table. We all would agree we don't want bad teachers in the classroom. We don't want people there who are just running out the string and trying to get to retirement and not doing their jobs. We don't want people that hurt children. We don't want people that don't care about the job they do. I think we'd all agree with that. Now the question is, how do we craft a policy change that gets us there without abruptly changing something without full consideration? It's confusing for a lot of people because the due process versus tenure. Kansas doesn't have tenure. Tenure is a higher education academic concept that makes firing and termination almost impossible. Kansas has due process. And there's two types. And so people say, well, you still have due process. Technically, you have part of due process. You have due process if you're terminated or believe you're terminated for exercise of a constitutionally protected activity. So you speak out or you advocate for the election of a senator or representative and you get fired because your principal didn't like that person. That would be a violation of your First Amendment right to free speech. You could then ask for a due process hearing with this new ed bill, and you always could. What you've lost is due process because you gave, politically powerful citizen A's son a bad grade and he didn't get to play in the football team. That's gone because that's not a constitutionally protected activity. And I think we would all agree that we want teachers to be able to be tough and firm on students and give them the grade that they deserve, maybe not the grade that their parent might want them to have, but we trust teachers to do what's in our students' best interests. And they have to have some freedom to do that, and part of that freedom is a protection of due process that they get a hearing. If they get terminated for doing what they think is the right thing, they get a hearing. Does that mean they get 2 years to run out the string and try to obfuscate and file lawsuits? No. But what this bill changed, that doesn't change the fact that there can still be lawsuits. That can still happen. So we didn't get all the benefits we were promised. And I'm guessing we probably got more downside than we thought we were going to get. And we certainly hurt relationships with some of the cornerstones in our community, which we shouldn't do. Government should be stable. One of the functions that we do is we provide stability. That's a very conservative notion that we don't change things rapidly, we don't change things in midstream because it leads to problems. And so we should have taken a fuller and more thoughtful look at this due process piece, and that's why I voted no. And I understand the people who voted yes, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on them. You're asking me what my process was. I think if we can't say that we gave it a full hearing, if I can't say that I was anything other than a junior partner in the legislation, I'm not interested. Let's go back to the drawing board and let's get it right. Let's take some time and let's find out what the real problems are and let's get them fixed. That and the tax credit piece is really a problem for me. Right now, if my company wants to give a scholarship to a young person to go to a private school or to go to a technical school, they can do that. And they can get a deduction on their taxes because if they give it to a 501c3. Now we're going to say you get both your tax deduction and a dollar for dollar tax credit. So you get two tax benefits for giving money to send people to other schools. And the tax credit you get is public dollars. We're giving public dollars to send people to private schools. The state, that's exactly what's happening. Because if you get a tax credit, it's less money that you've paid into the state. That's less public dollars. And the dollars, that dollar for dollar credit, or I think 70% credit actually,
70, yeah.
that 70% credit you will use to give a scholarship to send someone to a different school. And in Kansas, our Constitution in Article 6 says we cannot give public dollars to private schools. It's constitutionally prohibited. And so here we've just added a step to that, but we're still allowing a diminishment in public resources to give to private schools. And I just don't think that's right. I don't think it's particularly constitutional, and I couldn't support it.
These are both two big issues, and we could take the entire hour on either one of them, but there are other issues that we want to address. And so Almeida had asked to have the microphone, and then I'll get it to you, sir. Let's talk about some other issues.
Yes, as you can tell by looking at me, Medicare is near and dear to me. And with the big topic of CanCare and the Affordable Care Act and what Kansas is going to be doing, I have heard the idea that may affect Medicare reimbursement in Kansas, and are we trying to go off of the map here and mess up Medicare in trying to do something with the CanCare and so forth?
There are two issues related to this, Almeida, that I had noted. One was the healthcare compact. You all voted for the healthcare compact. And then the Kansas Medical Assistance Program, which had to do with the expansion of Medicaid. Representative Finch, you did not vote for this legislation. Senator Tyson and Jones, Representative Jones did. Kevin, you want to try to tackle this question first and fold in those votes?
Sure. I can try and tackle the question.
Healthcare, go.
Yeah, healthcare, go. This my mom, same way. And so this is so difficult. If we could, I'm backing up just for a second, but what I really struggle with is putting so much money, just throwing money out there. And when it comes to things that are the most important, healthcare and security, these things, a lot of times we are looking for somewhere else, so the money doesn't necessarily go where it needs to go. So, but that being said, Healthcare Compact was one of those that I feel like it could be an answer. That's the real question with it, is it has to go through some federal steps before it could actually help. So that the Healthcare Compact is not necessarily an answer right now, if you will. I think if it has the opportunity to go forward, I think that it would be a good thing. So that's why I voted for the Healthcare Compact. Essentially, what the Healthcare Compact is a group of states that get together and kind of back each other up, if you will, when it comes to healthcare, rather than a federal overall thing that could actually diminish our money when it comes to healthcare. So the idea is that it will actually help us, Medicare, or even the state CanCare type of stuff in the long run. So the idea is that it would be a good thing, except my understanding is it has to pass at a federal level. Is that correct? Yeah. So it's not like it's a done deal. So on that vote, that's exactly what it is. Almost an idealistic vote. I hope that it would go forward, but I don't know that it will. And then the other one, what was the other one? The
other one had to do with Medicaid.
Medicaid expansion, yeah. And the Medicaid expansion thing, ultimately, I think in the well, it's not. I think in the long run, it's gonna if with Obamacare, with ACA, and those things, I really if we move forward, it's going to cost us more in the long run than if we focus on a state program. I think that's why, like the healthcare compact and different things, we're trying to move forward with those, because ultimately we're trying to do what's best for healthcare in Kansas, and yeah, that's why I voted for that one. So.
Thank you. Representative Finch.
On the healthcare compact, I did vote for that when I campaigned. I said that I would look for ways for us to have flexibility from some of the mandates in Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, and this was an opportunity for that. I do agree with Representative Jones. I think it's largely a symbolic vote, because I don't think the federal government is going to vote to allow the states to do that. The Affordable Care Act is premised on this notion that you get an economy of scale, and that you'll lose that if you allow states to opt out because of the compact. The other thing, that if the compact were to come to pass, if Republicans took back the U.S. Senate and they were to allow compacts to go forward, they have the ultimate authority on what, if anything, is included in that. So it may be that they allow some funds to be utilized by the states in different ways, but the reality is, for programs like Medicare, again, they're set up actuarially to work on a federal scale. They're not going to allow states to take over pieces of that Medicare pie, because it doesn't make sense for the overall health of the whole system. So again, I see it largely as a symbolic vote, but I felt that it was one that was in conformance with what I told people when I ran, which was that I was going to look for ways we could have state solutions that increased competition in healthcare to bring down costs. And you heard me talk about the association healthcare bill earlier. That's the same principle. How do we get more free market, local solutions to the healthcare problem? And there's some other bills on health insurance I could talk about today, but I won't. And so I think it's a vote in absolute conformity with what I've said before. Now, the Medicaid vote, the Medicaid expansion vote, the problem is that the way that bill came out, it basically said that the governor could no longer make the decision to expand Medicaid without the legislature confirming that decision. So essentially it was a legislative override of what was the governor's power to make that decision. And that is the governor's decision to make. Under the law, I think he needs to lead on that issue. If he wants to see Medicaid expanded in Kansas, and explain the reasons for that, that's fine. If he doesn't, he needs to explain the reasons for that. But I don't think adding a legislative override to his decision was necessary. I do believe in separation of powers, and I think it was his decision to make. So just locally, it means about $3 million that Ransom Memorial Hospital will not get because we did not expand Medicaid in Kansas. But I think that was one the governor had it well in hand. I think he had looked into it. I think he was continuing to look into it. And I hope that we have not short-circuited his decision-making process with that legislation. That's why I voted no.
Okay, thanks. Senator Tyson.
Thank you. As far as both these bills, I think that both representatives touched on it. It does establish our position with Obamacare, and the Medicaid expansion, it's kind of the carrot and the stick. The federal government is waving the carrot in front of us, and as soon as we take that carrot, they use the stick to control us. They threaten to pull our money. They threaten to do things with our money. So we have to be very aware of that. I don't think the legislation that passed does impact. The governor will make his decision. If he decides to go forward with Medicaid, he will bring that proposal to the legislature, and we'll have a review of it. I don't think it limits whether that decision can be a yes or a no. It just gives more oversight. One of the bills we had this session was the PEAK program. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or not. It's an employment opportunity. If large corporations expand employment, they get tax abatements, tax credits. That started out as a $6 million program in the state. Well, we had our Secretary of Commerce, that misinterpreted the legislation. He read it to be $6 million a year. Well, you can see where this goes real quick, $6 million a year. He had allocated $40 million to these corporations. He was already up to $40 million of our tax dollars with no oversight. So we had a bill this year that increased the PEAK program to a cap of $42 million, backdated it to a company that he shouldn't have given it to begin with, that wasn't qualified. So I ran an amendment on the Senate floor that would have asked for 2 signatures, Secretary of Commerce and the Secretary of Revenue, to both be looking at this program. That amendment passed the Senate, but this conference committee that we've talked about, you get the reports, you can't make any amendment to it. It was pulled in conference committee. That legislation passed yesterday and without the oversight. So the Secretary of Commerce now can allocate up to $42 million with no oversight. So I don't see a problem with putting a second set of eyes on a decision that major to our state. That's where I came down on the issue. And I'd like to address just real quickly on the privatization. I really appreciate these 2 gentlemen. You know, the nice thing is there's a lot of legislators up there that that aren't as proactive in their work ethic or take things as seriously. And we're lucky to have such good representation in Topeka on that respect. We do disagree on some of the issues, and that happens. But on the private school portion of it, the corporation, the $10 million, I would have liked to have seen that anybody could have given and had the tax break on it. But there's a senator out of Wichita that's in a very, very poor school district, and she was excited about this legislation. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's very difficult, and there's always good and bad and pros and cons. And again, you have to, everybody has to decide what's best for their district and their area. So it's kind of interesting, the lay of the land. And I do, when we take our votes up there, we consider the 12th Senate district. So thank you.
Thank you. We're running short on time. I want to try to cover as much territory as we can. Please tell us who you are when you ask your question.
My name is Scott Yergin. I live in Franklin County on a farm southeast of Ottawa, and I think if there is a better way to create a revolution in this state than you all are, I don't know of it. You have disenfranchised so many teachers, Medicare people, Medicaid people, and it's interesting to me that here is Bloomberg Business Week, which my wife subscribes to. It's April 27th issue, and what it says on here is that it says Kansas is trying to shrink its way into prosperity. And what's interesting to me is that you seem surprised that we're having these budget shortfalls. And this is April 27th, and it's Bloomberg Business News, and the British magazine The Economist had an article about 3 weeks ago about Kansas. And Kansas is Western economic news because of the experiments being run by you people right here. And what this article says is the Kansas body, the Kansas Legislative Research Department predicted that with all of the cuts to the courts, the cuts in income taxes, that by the year 2019, there will be a $900 million shortfall, 14% of the Kansas budget. $900 million shortfall in the Kansas budget. And so your surprise just seems to me a non sequitur. You shouldn't be surprised because all you have to do is read the damn news. A second point.
I'm going to ask you to ask a question because
Here's my question. My wife and I have a small business, and we have about $750,000 invested in rental properties, 3 in Johnson County and 1 in this county. And your tax policies are hurting our business because what our renters say, and these are not your Franklin County Naugahyde rental properties, they're nicer rental properties. And not to a person, but certainly almost to a person. Our renters want good schools. And the school budgets in Kansas are just being torn apart by your policies.
So we're running out of time. Do you have a
So
question?
what are you going to do about our business? That's my question.
Okay. Senator Tyson, I'm going to let you respond to that comment that he just made and the question that he got to.
Okay, a couple of comments real quick. The court's funding was actually increased by $10 million this year, so I'm not sure about that comment. $2 million out of the state general fund, $8 million from a fee increase. But the as far as the shortfall, we were actually $150 million in the black for the first 3 quarters. So the shortfall is, like we said, the reason it was so unexpected was it was within a 2-week span, and it's nationwide. Kansas isn't the only state that this has occurred to. So I think what happens is the people that are running the numbers are using the same data, same equations, and this just accurately, as explained by Representative Finch, was not calculated in. It was a windfall that was not anticipated not to occur. As far as your business, that's one of the items that I was working on, the schedule, the losses, the CF&E, that would have helped address some of the business issues that the tax policy has before us. But one of the things that we've talked about, and it was discussed very heavily this week with both tax chairmen from the House and the Senate, they approached their leadership on a study committee. The tax codes in Kansas are so complicated and convoluted that we all agree that they need to be addressed and looked at. And, we've got tax codes that list specific business names. That tells you we've got a problem with our tax codes in Kansas. And so we would like to take a look at that and help get it cleaned up.
Thanks. Representative Finch, I know these are big issues, but I'm going to ask you for a quick response.
Wow, okay.
Sorry.
Mr. Yergin, if you've been to these before and listened to us, and certainly to me, I don't think it is a surprise to me, and I've said that several times. And the tax cut plan that nobody really thought was going to pass in 2012, but did due to some procedural things, and again late at night, has created some problems. The follow-up plan last year tried to ameliorate some of those problems, but the reality is when you cut income tax rates that much, you're going to have less revenue. As the senator said, we had projections of revenue that were exceeded for the first 3 months of this year, and then we had the big drop. And I think what everybody here is surprised about is the size of that drop, not that revenues in general are down, and certainly the experiment that you refer to, as the governor has called it, this what he called the shot of adrenaline into the heart of the Kansas economy, was to be tax cuts would lead to job growth and creation. People would have more money in their pockets because of tax cuts, and they would spend it, or they would create jobs with it. He's still banking,
And that people would move.
and that people would move here. You had to have population growth, and he's still banking that's going to happen. We don't know. The evidence thus far indicates that it's not happening. And we need certainly more to happen if we're going to have, if you look at these number projections, we're going to have more happen fairly soon. And we've also got to get spending under control. And I think that you heard all of us here today say that we believe in fiscal responsibility and that we want to see the state run in a way that we don't exceed our revenues with our expenditures. So I take a little issue with the characterization that all of us are here, that we even have that much power amongst the three of us. I think if we did, we might do things a little differently, whether it's CanCare, whether it's this. But certainly, we hear your concerns, I hear your concerns, and we want to be mindful of that, and I think we're all committed to quality schools. How we get there is a subject of disagreement. And that's the best thing about a constitutional republic, is that we can all agree to disagree, but we do have similar goals, and we disagree sometimes on how we get there, and that's okay too. But I appreciate your voice being part of the debate, and would be happy to talk with you more about your business after this.
Representative Jones, I'm going to give you the last word.
I would say agreed. Basically, as the last word. I know we're running short on time, but your concerns they're not just you guys. I've talked to many others that have had the same concerns. Small business, schools, all of that stuff, and what I do want to do is thank you for standing up right here and saying it in front of everybody. Hearing it now, I hadn't heard about shrinking Kansas into prosperity. Yeah, that's actually. Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, hadn't read that yet, but and that's where the debate's out. Nobody really knows if it's going to get there. My hope is it does. It wouldn't be a great follow-up story if we actually could shrink Kansas into prosperity. So we're well aware. We're trying to us. Blaine and I have been up there for 2 years. I mean, I realize the weight of the responsibility to actually move forward and make things happen, and that's what I really believe we're trying to do, is to actually get enough traction and influence so that we can actually make some of those changes that are best for our state. So.
We didn't cover as much territory as I hoped today. We got about halfway through my list of things to talk about. But these are complicated issues, and they're big issues. But I very much appreciate the legislators being here today. I think we should give them a round of applause. Representative government is messy. I think we all know that, but it's energizing to be in a room like this with concerned citizens, and that's part of the reason I like being a part of the Franklin County community. Need to thank our sponsors for this event, the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce Legislative Action Committee, Franklin County Farm Bureau Association, American Legion Post number 60, Walmart Logistics, Hasty Awards, and Advantage Ford. Can we give all of them a hand? Other thank yous that we need to give are for Ryan Henningsen for furnishing the refreshments today, the City of Ottawa for providing this lovely facility, and Matt Simonson, who's celebrating an anniversary soon, for filming and making sure that it's put on the Government Access Channel. So let's thank all of them. John, do we have any announcements about upcoming events? All right, then I think that we are adjourned. Thank you very much.